Welcome back to another episode of Out of the Link Podcast. Casper, welcome back.
Good to be back. Good to be
Oh
back,
yeah. All
Robbie.
right. So I have to continue on what we were discussing on off air. We don't have to discuss details. We're just discussing two drunk stories. But when I got to my buddy's house for this concert, I don't know if you would have listened back a year and a half ago, I would have told you that I like to get a little buzz, but I would like to watch Disastrous Airways about horrible plane crashes because they would do reenactments and they're all like way too like they CGI'd a woman's hair on fire. Like to
Oh
me, it's
no.
just too hilarious to watch. You can't watch that sober. But one of them was Dag Hammarskjöld, and I've been doing episodes on Dag Hammarskjöld. I'm actually speaking with someone who's involved in the UN
Oh,
reinvestigation. Actually, when we're recording this, will be tomorrow. Uh, they're doing a UN reinvestigation for I think the ninth time about Dag Hammarskjöld's death because they think that it was an assassination and not just an accident. But they were playing it on one of the Disastrous Airways things. And I was watching it, and I would literally say, "Well, we don't know where the flight logs are because someone just took them. We can't tell where they went." Then, like a minute later, TV go, and then they would find the flight logs to be able to tell if Dag Hammarskjöld's plane was foul play. And then it goes, but the flight logs were missing. And my buddy's mom just goes, "How do you know all this?" I go, "Because I've spoken to people who were investigating it." And it's just like, to me, it's just funny because I was like predicting time.
you've also got so much stuff going around in your head, but you're also one of those guys who I sort of like because you're so involved in it. When I was acting, I remember I'm watching the X-Files and with my sister, and I go, "Oh, this, when this happened, this," and she turns to me and she goes, "Listen, I don't care who you know, what show you've been on, what actors you've been with. To me, the X Files is real. So I don't need to hear none of that stuff." And I went, okay, it's real. Nothing happened. It's all good. So
I was pretty impressed by your IMDb page. I do have to ask you, and this is kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit too, but My Five Wives. What do you mean you got to, did you actually get to meet Rodney Dangerfield?
yeah, I did. Yeah.
Oh
That
my
was
God, please tell me how that came about.
that was a very interesting day. I mean, he's a lovely, lovely man. The original name of the show was My Nine Wives, when it was written, like when the script came out. And the show is like it's Rodney pretty much in his last year, I think, before he passed away, kind of thing. I think it was his last movie. And I was a store clerk, and I think his wives are in shopping. And he just basically, he's sort of like working with Robin Williams. He just kind of stood in the back and told jokes. And they're the dad jokes, the Rodney Dangerfield dad jokes, but they're just so funny because they're it's just the way he tells them that and the that he's and of course he's doing, yeah, I don't get no respect, it's his standard line, but and he's a lovely man, absolutely lovely man. Looks like he's sunburned as hell and he drinks a lot, kind of thing. But when you're talking to him, you could tell he was busy. He's doing, he's memorizing his lines and stuff, but he made time for everybody that was there. That was such a long, man. That was the '90s. Holy crap! But yeah, he's a super nice guy. I was really, really lucky to get on the show, and because I was chosen. There was one of those things I didn't audition for. No, the he was good, but no, the very first TV show I did, Strange Luck, had James Cromwell as he was the guy I was acting with, and he's the farmer from Babe. He was Zephyrin Cochrane in all the Star Trek, the Star Trek movie. He was in Arnie's Eraser. He was in, New York. You've seen him. He was in MASH. He was in all these things.
Did you know they didn't get paid for Star Trek?
What the which one
The acting.
like the stars didn't get paid, or
Yeah, they
they
didn't get paid.
what, because they were on contract or something, or they
They just do basically doing it for free, no money.
wonder if they, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look
I
into
was
that.
like, no, I was like, that's crazy. You'd think they'd be like billionaires because of that Star Trek stuff.
Oh, I see what you mean. Residuals. Yeah. They got paid on the day, like their acting stuff, but they would have been paid like maybe like they were making like maybe $500 a week then, in the '60s kind of thing. But because of the way the contracts and stuff would have been written, Paramount and Gene Roddenberry would have got all the rights, all the royalties. So Gene Roddenberry would have gotten lots of monies. Um, and I don't even know what happens with the writers, but yeah, it was. So I was lucky earlier in my career. I met some big names. I did a show with the Bionic Woman.
So apparently it was through 1971 they only are the only ones that can get residuals on, but they don't get residuals on any other episodes.
Wow.
So all the big
That's
ones that are just huge, massive episodes of Star Trek, they don't get
yeah,
residuals on.
no, the first because they did 77 episodes, I think. Yeah. So they if they started getting residuals after like from 71, so that would have been like the last year, maybe the last few episodes, and by then they knew that it was going to be canceled or something. Because again, it was an expensive show to do for the time. So it's usually sometimes it doesn't really matter how good the show is, it's how expensive is this to run. And if it was there were so many spin-offs planned for that show. There was a guy, they did an episode, Gary Seven. I don't he was the guy with the black cat. He's an alien living on Earth. It's when the There's the geek stuff. It's the Enterprise goes back in time and they get seen by a fighter jet from the 60s. And so they have to kidnap the pilot. And then there's already an alien on Earth who's been watching things, and he realizes that the Enterprise is there. So Spock and the crew have to go meet him, and his name is Gary Seven. That's what you don't know what his assistant was. Uh, his assistant was she was the laughing girl from Laugh-In. Goldie Hawn, I think, was his assistant, and that didn't fly. And then there was going to be a couple other ones that they'd sort of set up where this is going to be a spin-off of Star Trek, and no, no, sci-fi just went away for a while.
And it came back with like a great promise to it all.
It did. I mean, I think the next thing they did for Star Trek was the animated series, which is really weird, but I wish they would have had some of those aliens in the actual show, but they couldn't have done it.
Back to Rodney Dangerfield. How did you get this position?
No, I think I had just done a Disney film, and that was another really weird one because I was chosen by the producers for some, um, and when I was on set, I'm not sure if they thought I was somebody else or, um, but they treated me like I was one of the regular cast members, and the character I was playing had two lines near the end of the day, and I just kind of sat with my family. But the way the producers were talking, the producers would come over and say, "Okay, for this one, we're going to shoot this and this and this. Is that okay with you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's fine." And so I had no idea what was going on. But from that, um, I booked another show that had Mackenzie Phillips on it called.
Did you say because they thought you were somebody else?
I think they had to have thought I was
You
somebody
are
else.
like the white Morgan Freeman. I mean, you'd be more popular if you painted yourself black.
Sorry. Yeah, and speaking of, I wanted to touch on that just a little bit, but after, so there was this what basically long
Painting yourself
long
black?
no long story short, the I booked a few things in a row where the I didn't have to audition for, which is very rare in when you first start out because you pretty much have to audition, but they were basically Disney stuff where they went, no, that's the guy, that's the guy, that's the guy. I'd done a show with, I wish I got to meet him. Kelsey Grammer had written a show that was basically a Twilight Zone for sports. So it was take all the weird events that happen in sports and combine it with the Twilight Zone. And it was called Front Page. And we shot a pilot and it didn't fly. I wish it would have. And the episode that we were in was the day that there was a big football game on. I think the Jets, New York Jets were playing, it was a Super Bowl. And it's a Sunday. And what happened was it went into overtime. And whoever was in the station that day, I think it was like a janitor or something like that, wasn't watching the game. He wasn't paying attention to anything. He just looked up the clock and saw, oh, this is when this is supposed to happen. So he just switched over to Heidi, about the little Swiss girl in the
In the
mountains.
middle of the Bowl game?
Yeah, middle of halftime because it just switched over. And this is in the 60s, that kind of thing. And what happened, the riots that happened were insane. And this show is about these guys are watching the game on TV at home. And then this Heidi thing happens. And one of the guys, his wife works in that building. She doesn't actually work for the station, but there were mobs of people about to break into the building and basically harm a bunch of people, kind of thing, because they were so upset. And so this show was about what these guys have to do to get to it actually it only takes place in their living room, but the conversation she's having on the phone with his wife and trying and with the riots and the mobs, and it was really really crazy. Yeah. The other one was it was a golf related one where I think a guy has the best game of his life and then gets hit on the head with a golf ball and dies as he's coming up to the 18th. He has a hole in one in the 18th and he's walking up, hey, hey, and all of a sudden you hear four, and so takes him out before he can finish the game, kind of thing. It was just really, there was some very, they, from what I remember, he took true stories and pulled as much from them he could, or factual stories, and he kind of twisted them a little bit for, put a little Twilight Zone Rod Serling twist on him, and it would have been really interesting. I imagine if you did it today, it could really fly. But the point of man, I'm all over the place today. The point of that was from that show, the producers went on to do another movie with Stanley Tucci. He was in it, and they said, "We're not going to audition. We'd like. There's a small part in it. Do you want it?" And I went, "It's one of those things when you're first starting out, and somebody says, 'Do you want it?' I don't know many actors who would have went, 'Nah, I'm going to pass on that one. Thank you very much for the offer, though.'" And it was a mailman in a show called The Whole Shebang. Now, I don't even know if The Whole Shebang got done, but the first thing I got warned from Stanley, he's a lovely guy, super great guy to work with. Unless haven't worked with him before, because they basically, I have three lines. Here's your package, and I just have to, and they said, all we need you to do is be a straight man for this, okay? And I went, okay. And they said, because Stanley's probably going to go off script. And I went, oh, okay. And action. And so I just walk up my hand and we ended up shooting our scene. I think we spent about 45 minutes on the scene, but some of it was so hard to do because he would just start, he's trying to make you laugh. He's trying to, but his deliveries are really good because he knows what he's doing. And so he decided to play after a while. And so I went, okay, fella, if you're going to play, I'm going to play. And so I'm going to be drier than David Duchovny in X-Files. That's right. I'm not going to crack a smile or do nothing. I'm not going to. And we ended up having some really good moments, but that's early. And then later on, you find out that you're auditioning your butt off some really, really stupid stuff and you're not really acting for people. So yeah, I had some lucky moments, but Rodney, that was super lucky to get in to meet him because he is such a nice guy. Yeah. And yeah, we did our scene. It was only one scene, but they spend well, I don't know if you know, but filming, it was 5 6 hours of working with Rodney for us, as where they're switching things and cameras around it. Yeah, he was just a great guy. He wasn't one of those sort of famous actors that disappeared, went into his trailer kind of thing. He stayed on set. He was in the back. He had his chair. He had a script. He's looking at the script, and he wanted to be around people. He wanted to see what was going on, and you could tell he was tired, and he was really working it near the end of the day. But he was still him when it was him time to go. He was funny.
Were you able to separate the on-screen personality from the off-screen personality, or was it all just
No,
him?
no, that's Rodney Dangerfield's Rodney Dangerfield, pretty much. Unless he's always like that. And then when you get him at home, he is different. But when he's out in public, he's Rodney. So it doesn't matter if people are filming it or not, but he's always on because when he was off camera, he was just the same, cracking the jokes and doing the stuff, keeping things light. And whenever there were problems or issues arising, as will happen, he would just make fun of it. He'd make a joke out of it, and we kept going on, kind of thing. But no, Rodney was Rodney. Sort of like the way Robin Williams was in the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
It was very difficult to separate Robin from Robin. But later on, when he was given the chance to do his stuff, you saw, okay, this is a different person. Wow, holy cow.
Well, Robin Williams just had something different about him. I mean, he's one of my favorite comedians besides Norm Macdonald, but gotten a lot of crap with a lot of other comedians. A lot of people don't like kind of know this, but he would steal people's material, and I don't think it was purpose. Like I don't think it was just him being like, "Oh, this is a good joke, it's mine now." I think it was he just wanted to be funny in every moment. Like we all know those people that really try every single second to crack a joke where it's like, "Dude, can you be serious one time?" And that was Robin Williams. You know, he just didn't like the silence, which I can relate
Yeah,
to. I don't like
I'm
that
not
either.
sure if like on Mork and Mindy, I'm not sure if I think Robin got blamed for that. I don't know how much control the writers had of that show, because I know, for example, on Jumanji, when he did Jumanji, the script was character says this, Robin, 8 minute ad lib, and there would be a X on it and just go, and it would just mark 8 minutes as he's going to go, or it'd say 3 minute ad lib through, and just so you never knew what he was going to say. So the other actors had to be really good on script with that. But man, oh man, yeah, that's
What
no.
about
What I was
working?
gonna,
I was about to say, what about working with Andrew Dice Clay?
I've never worked with Andrew Dice Clay.
He's listed in the movie with Rodney Dangerfield, so you just worked with Rodney.
Oh, I didn't have any scenes with him. Oh yeah,
But you got to see
um,
him at least, right?
no.
What? Those cheap bastards.
That is the cheat, because that's the thing where it's sort of like when you're like Toy Story and stuff like that. A lot of those actors didn't even meet each other, to
That's
do that
so
recording stuff.
dumb.
And so when you have scenes like there were scenes with that was when Andrew Dice Clay was at his Ford Fairlane
Yeah.
hiatus kind of thing. I wasn't a big fan of his.
What's in the bowl, bitch?
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of his humor. I preferred Edward Murphy,
Okay.
that young lad. So I mean, he just come up with Delirious, and I'd never laughed so hard in my life. I think when Eddie Murphy did that stand up, but they were sort of around the same time that sort of he'd come out. His thing was, I'm going to be a bit more controversial than Eddie. Eddie swore, um, but not as much as Richard Pryor, for example. But Richard Pryor had a plan. He knew where he was going with this kind of thing. Whereas Andrew Dice Clay was just, like his
Well,
Hickory Dick.
Richard Pryor, I mean, he set himself on fire and would talk about it on stage,
Yeah, yeah. And it was how he set himself on fire was,
smoking crack.
yeah, exactly. And it's not the type of thing where you could do. Actually, Gene Wilder was talking about Richard Pryor. Just recently, I saw an interview with him, and they were talking about the the prison movie they did. What the heck was that? But the Gene is sort of a they'd never met and they didn't work, and he was introduced to Richard, and then they go to do their first scene, and Gene says his line, and Richard said his line, and Gene says his line, and then Richard goes "Phoot," just off, just off, and Gene just kind of looked at him and went, and so he just answered him honestly. He just said, "Okay, I'm going to be your straight man if that's how this is going to work," and it worked great. He saw it right away. He went, if he's going to do that, and then he came back to the script, and then they went to script. But Gene never went off the script, but Richard every so often would go "Fwing," and you're like, okay, I'll just wait for that to come back. I'll catch it. Thank you. And then he'd.
It's got to be awkward being around that and being like, God, we had a whole plan and everything.
Well, it's sort of like they had, all these lovely stories. Like infamously, Robert De Niro on the set of Boy's Life did not stick to the script at all. But the other actors had to be script perfect, and that was very important for him, for De Niro, and for the like. Basically, De Niro came in and gave this sort of lecture, going, I'm going to go off book, or they were told Mr. De Niro is going to go off book. You guys just stick to your script. So how hard is that when you say your line and then the person talking to you doesn't say back what he's supposed to say, and then you have to answer with the line that's next, but you have to make it work from what he said, and you're a 10-year-old boy. Like how like that was really really hard. But sometimes that would happen on set where you have some people come in and just go,
I would like to see a documentary on all like the side stars in a movie that would just explain how all like the real actors compared to the ones that were just like there because they were getting a paycheck and really just wanted to like we all know like you just mentioned an example of someone that goes I'm going off script and then you have to figure out how to recover from that. do we ever look at the side actor's perspective? Like you telling me Rodney Dangerfield was on screen and off screen the same is awesome because a lot of people are not. A lot of people are going back to their trailer. A lot of people are like, "Oh, I'm here for a paycheck. You know, you
I
don't
I
matter to
did
me."
a I did a show called um John Doe, and I was a serial killer. And that was another one of the shows where I got chosen, and I got chosen because of my headshot. And people were going, all
That's
the
not a
agents.
compliment. That's not a
Well, no, well,
compliment.
all the agents. Here's the thing: all the agents in town were sending like their biggest, meanest guys. He's serial killer. Basically, he was somebody. He wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't nice. His nickname was the Butcher. But he so they're sending all their, the meanest looking guys. And the producers of the show were also the ones who were producing a show called The Profiler that was on at the same time, which was pretty much early. um what's that show with the FBI agents who go around hunting down serial killers? They're
Mindhunter?
always No, they're always on a plane, they're always flying back and forth, they're always talking. They got the geeky girl who runs their computer department.
Christ, Casper, narrow it down. There's like thousands of them.
Well, I'm just trying to think. They've got actually, I'm trying to think of what it's called. I can't think of it
Criminal
now.
Minds.
That's it. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you. It
Which
was
one, New York or Chicago?
No, this would have been Criminal, the first one they did. And so it was basically The Profiler was an early version of that. The Profiler came out around the same time as Millennium, which was another show that was about serial killers. That if it just was in the wrong time, it should have come out because people weren't ready for serial killers all over the place. So the guys who were doing The Profiler were the same producers. Well, they said no. The agents aren't getting this. They go, if you want a serial killer, it's that guy. And he pointed to my headshot and he goes, that's the guy you get to be your serial killer. And everybody in the room went, well, he doesn't look like a serial killer. And he went, what is the first thing people say when they find out someone's a serial killer? Oh, he was such a nice boy. We didn't see that coming. You never see, oh yeah, we were always really creeped out about him. We always went to the other side of the road when he came. Yeah, we always suspected he was a serial killer, but we just didn't know when we were going to get it. That never happened. So of course you get the guy who doesn't look like um a serial killer, and that's who you cast. And so I show up on set, and the first thing they asked me was, is it okay if we talk to you when in between takes? And I went, yes. Why would you not want to do that? And they said, well, the last actor who was on the show who played a serial killer refused to talk to anybody. He wanted to stay in character. He wanted to be creepy and mean through the entire thing. And I went, okay. I
Method
said, I'm not.
acting.
Yeah, I said, I'm not that guy. I said, in fact, through all my plays and all the theater I've done, it's not everybody's like this. But my style is I have a switch. I get ready before I go on. I flick it. And when I'm off, I'm off. Uh, you're paying attention and stuff, but you can't, I think, who is it? Bill Nye said it the best, where he said, it's a job when you're on stage. Look, I don't have time to think about the craft when I'm on stage, because I have to stand in this spot and then walk to that spot and get to that doorknob so that that light can turn on so this person can say that line and that works. Because if I'm not there at that time, this whole scene falls apart. I'm not thinking about the craft and my motivation to get there. I'm just going, I have to get there at that moment. And my job is to make getting there interesting. And that's that's what actors now you'll change. That does change sometimes.
Well, Bill Nye happens to focus in on a specific thing. I don't think a lot of people focused on the ramifications of what it was going to mean. And really, when Bill Nye was recording those shows, he got so much crap from just other actors and other people that were just like, you're a joke. You know, you do some sciencey, crappy little thing. But what we notice now is all these who holds the power in the future.
I'm sorry, Bill Nye, the guy.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Bill Nye the Science Guy. I was like, wait, hang on a
No,
second.
no,
I
no,
was like,
no,
you know,
no.
that guy, the only reason he's super famous now is because he targeted kids. When you got to
Oh
understand,
no.
this is one thing I really, really noticed is that there's a lot of people like the guy from Blue's Clues that left the show and came back and it was all memed up everywhere. And it was like society. It was like right after the pandemic, the world's going to go back to what it's because all these people targeted my generation And now my generation is now in their 20s, mid 20s, and we're now more of the adult out there. I mean, there are older folks. I'm not saying they don't exist. It's just now we're now the predominant voice. We're the younger, where people in their 30s would have the most political voices and things of that sort. So now we've all taken the stage, and now there's younger generations that are being targeted by older or whatever on TV. And now in 20 years, 15 years, those people are going to look to them as their idols, and they're going to be all over the pop culture thing. So if you want to get it in, be a voice on a cartoon show, be a voice on something where someone that hears it and goes, "Oh my God." And then when they get older, it's a 20-year payoff, basically. It's like raising a kid.
When when you said he was targeting children,
I know how to clarify.
I
That can
went
mean many
the
things today.
I went the wrong way.
Most people do. And it's not like I'm holding it against you, because it is kind of the weird culture we're in right now.
Well, it's also it is interesting that, for example, my generation, if they were targeted, didn't say anything. And there's probably still not going to say anything. But whereas, as you're saying, your generation, if they were targeted that way, they are saying things. And that's sort of what started like the Me Too movement. And it started like you had people going, I have a voice now. It's called the internet. I can do some stuff here a bit, almost a bit anonymously. I can start a ball rolling. And then if it grows, maybe I'll step up because so there's a little bit of I'm not a big fan of trolls, internet trolls, but I mean there is a certain thing that can happen on the internet where if somebody goes, if I start this ball rolling and it picks up speed, then I'll jump on and say what happened to me. If it doesn't, if nothing happens, then I won't say anything. But now we've got stuff going like with all the like the ratioed stuff and all this. It's like some of it I don't even get. I go, I don't even use TikTok.
You should.
So I'm sorry, I don't. I would spend too much time on it.
It is fun to be on it sometimes.
That's the thing. If I got it, I'd be like, oh, scroll,
But if you
swipe.
check your phone storage and it's like, "Oh, you're out on the set of storage," I'm like, "How? I have 200 gigs." And you look and TikTok's like 90 of that. You're like, "Excuse me, what are you using?"
Exactly. You're like, 90 gigs. Unless it stores everything
It does.
that you possibly
Every
that you don't.
single thing.
Yeah, not possibly things that you watch, but things that you've scrolled by. But
I literally made a video or tried to make a video, put it in my draft, and I deleted the video on my actual phone, and it was still stored into TikTok. I go, okay, see the games we're playing.
yeah, that's the it's an interesting thing about that. But earlier on, you mentioned Morgan Freeman, which was sort of he had just come out with somebody on TikTok had heard him doing a commercial, like an anti something commercial, and it wasn't him. It was a fake. And so people fans of Morgan Freeman went on his like Twitter account or pardon me, X account and said, "Hey, is this you on TikTok?" And he's like, "No, that's not me." And so he got it pulled down and he got the company uh sort of chastised for that. And what came out of that, what's been happening with like people have been in the voiceover market for the voiceover area, people have been worried about AI is going to take over the world. We're going to lose all our jobs and stuff. Have you noticed how AI is sort of imploding these days? Like, it started with you had AI couldn't depict historic figures properly, kind of thing. And then you had um you have, if you listen to like AI voiced YouTube clips, they're like, are you kidding me? Like, if I ever hear,
Well, most people think all your clips are AI voiced.
well, but I mean, I will never say protagonist, instead of protagonist. I will never say protagonist, but you will hear that through YouTube AI, and it's just like, that type of stuff drives me crazy. But what that means is like, I had a session the other day where this tells me that AI I'm okay with it. I had a session the other day where the client was really focused on one word. It was part of their tagline. It was one word. So we spent about 20 minutes doing this one word, trying to get it, leaning it this way and that way. And you can't do that with AI. You can't do that. I want to see, like, I'm not sure if I told you this story or not, but I did a thing for a phone company.
Is it the oh God, hold on. I can remember it. Uh
Well, it was, I originally thought it was Huawei,
yeah,
but it was that,
Huawei.
but it was actually Xiaomi, which is the other one, but it's another Chinese brand company. But that whole thing was, if like how would they like of that I had to record that one word. That's all it was going to be. And I thought it's going to be 20 minutes. 20 minutes was fine. We did 2 1-hour sessions. They still didn't get it. And then they wanted me to what's called wilding, where you just say the word. They go, give us 60 different versions of that word and just send it to us. And finally I got another note from the client and they said, okay, we need you to sound like you're an American who now lives in London but speaks fluent Chinese. That was my note. I have one word. How do you do what? So that's one of those
Pull
things.
them pants up and play the part, my boy.
That's actually so you have one of those moments. It's sort of like when somebody's running a mixing booth and somebody goes, "Hey, can you turn that up like 3%?" And the guy goes, "Okay, how's that? Hey, that's perfect. Thanks." And you're like, "Yeah, that's what I thought." Because you didn't touch anything. You kind of just stared at the board and went, "Hey, how's that?" It's all perception. And so if you tell them, if they give you the note and you go, "Oh, why didn't you tell me sooner?" And so I did another 10 versions and they basically the note I got back was, "Oh, perfect." And I was like, there's nothing I was doing was different, man. Holy crap. But so I think that AI has got a ways to go, but part of what's happening is because AI is pulling stuff from the net. You've seen it with music. What's happening with music? Like you have like all the big music companies are suing all the chat or the AI music companies. Now, part of that's because the big music companies like Sony or Spotify, they want to keep the rights. But what's happening is because the AI is searching the net for all these songs, when it creates a song for you that you think is my custom AI song, it's not. It's got parts of other songs. And you play these songs on YouTube, and YouTube copyright strikes them. And you go, how can I get a copyright strike song for an AI created song? And they showed this one clip where this guy got 4 copyright strikes, four for this little 15-second blurb. In fact, it was even less. It was, like 10 seconds. And it was 4 different songs that each contained that riff or that thing. And so YouTube is basically in a copyright strike cycle when it comes to AI stuff. So that's an issue right there. But what's also happening, it's the same thing that's happening with like Chat GPT. Chat's pulling, it only has so many references in place.
It does help. It does help. I use some of those for the JFK clips sometimes.
If you for it's a tool, and if you use it as a tool, then don't look at AI as replacing me. Look at it as helping you do the thing. For somebody like you, who it's a perfect tool for you, go, can you help me write this little thing? You go write a short paragraph on LBJ, and so you go fine, and you get this little thing about a thing, and it'll write that, and then you edit it later. You change. We'll go, okay, I'll change that. That's fine. Sometimes it's good, but it's perfect for what you need it for these little 1 minute clips. I think it's different if you were writing like 2 or 3 page, or like say like a documentary where you wanted to write it more, because then you could kind of tell where the AI is sort of
We have
coming.
a minute to explain like some of the most important things, and there's not really a whole lot I can do.
No,
Um,
no, yeah.
I want
So
to get into this with you because I want to get your perspective on what it's like been doing clips for me so far. But one of our clips has 200,000 views.
which one's that one?
Evelyn Lincoln, the one about the secretary that got the note. Now we do get some criticism because apparently I must have typed in a five instead of typed in a six instead of a five because you read from 1961 to 1961, and I was like, oh wait a minute, that's 1951. But everyone's like commenting like wrong. Look, check your dates. I'm like, it's a 1 minute clip. I'm not going to take down a view thing that has 200,000 views over trying to
Even
fix
if you
that.
get that, if you look at the stuff when people are going, if that's what they're picking up,
Well, that's all the criticism we get is either the way you say something or it's got to be someone saying wrong. And I'm like, well, hang on a second. How is it wrong? And they're just like, it's just wrong. I was like, bro, this is a witness identification project. All I'm doing The only one I've inserted my own bias in is the Eisenhower one, which I thought came out fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah. I actually, from these, I find them fascinating in a way because um just the little snippets and little clips. It's it's practice for me kind of thing, but all I'm doing is I'm going back into like I'm just being like a 60s newscaster, like a Walter Cronkite or something. I'm not trying to put any inflection on it. I'm just telling a story. um and for a minute long piece, they're actually really good that way. But it is interesting when you start seeing all this is a really good way to start like connecting dots and things, or not even connecting dots, but seeing how many dots there are and how complicated this was, and it shouldn't have been that complicated. A, it's sometimes people of the internet generation find it very difficult to understand, or pre, smartphone, pre, this, find it very difficult to understand how somebody could get away with something like that in the open, and nobody saw anything kind of thing, or how like, and it's how do you prove it? And this is a perfect example of seeing how you can mislead somebody doing this. All you need is somebody said this. Well, get someone else to say that, and so you have a he said she said thing, or a he said, and that's amazing how that kind of all that happened. The whole thing about the commissions, the Warren commissions, is to me is you kind of go, these are guys who just got they got paid a crap ton of money and they didn't do anything. Like uh in fact, what was it, the piece you said where the guy denied the rest of the committee to see the autopsy because he
Yeah,
felt it
Earl
was,
Warren.
that's ridiculous. It's
Again,
like,
again, all right, so here's a good question for you. Before doing these clips and before listening to any episodes I've done on JFK, what was your stance on it? And then now what's your stance?
um to be honest, my stance was I didn't really care at the time, but as I've been doing them, it's a very interesting mystery is what it's come into, which what you've done is for somebody like me who was like, well, it was such a long time ago, I don't really know what happened then. But I'd also realized that, um, when they talk about, the grassy knoll meme and all that kind of stuff that's all over the place. And then you realize that there's all this other stuff that was going on and all these other people. And there wasn't just the Zapruder film. There was other films, and there was certain stuff happening. And Jack Ruby is like, his whole narrative through that whole thing is just bizarre. Like, kind of, because you kind of go, why is he, like, for example, there's that picture of him standing in the back of the room on a chair with a notepad, and you're like, what is he even doing there? Like, why?
Wait, so have you just looked at the scripts or have you actually watched the clips when they get done?
Oh no, I watched the clips as well, kind of thing.
So
Yeah.
you see, I'm backing it up with documentation. I'm not just okay. Because you mentioned to me on one of these, like it says carousels. Should I say carousels? I'm
Oh
like, bro,
no,
that's
that was the
Shirley
thing.
Randall. That's exactly what she said. She said carousels.
Exactly. And so and as I mentioned later, I go, unless it might just be a region specific thing because I'd never heard
Texas,
carousels before.
baby.
Yeah, there you go. So, the for somebody just tuning in, because it is interesting because you do back it up, you got all this stuff. But the one thing that you've always done with these is you don't say this person did it, this is why. What you say is this person could have done it, this person couldn't have done it, this person might have done it, this person is, but you never actually say this is my belief of how this happened. You say this is all the evidence, what do you think?
Really, I just got upset with trying to find up testimony of somebody. And then usually I would like to hit videos to see if someone had done like a longer, extensive video on it. And there is none.
There are some videos, but you've probably seen them by, it's a name like Handle and Glean, or I don't know, something like that, which when I was looking up pronunciations of a certain word, and I typed in this moment, and they're basically a bunch of black and white stills or movies just with music behind them. There's no narration and there's no text. Um, and they're kind of YouTube shorts. They're about that long kind of thing, but uh they show some of the images.
There might be some of that for some of the more popular names. Like Jim Cothey is well he's one of the ones that everyone mentions as like, if you mention it to any JFK person who knows really anything about like mysterious deaths on the JFK case, that's the one that always gets mentioned with Dorothy Kilgallen because Jim Cothey died of a throat chop. So but I'm not doing a clip on him because the last one I did with all the evidence and the actual, you can look up the YouTube video of his body being pulled out of his apartment. Um, YouTube flagged it, said it's a harmful conspiracy. I'm like, here's the autopsy report in the clip that says died of neck injury, blunt force trauma, throat chop. I'm like, all right. So
This is the thing. When stuff is getting flagged with a lot of stuff these days is getting flagged by AI, and it's interesting when you will phone somebody up and go, "Why am I being flagged for this?" And they're like, "Well, it wasn't us; it was AI." And they're like, "Well, why?" Well, the AI flagged it, so that's what it is. And it's like, well, what? Why? Well, the AI did it. If you want, you could try again later. The AI might change its mind. And you go, the AI might change its mind. Is it not doing algorithms and stuff? So do you randomly just choose clips like 3 months later that have been banned or whatever or flagged and rerun the algorithm again just to see if it's going to get through? No, I mean, once it's been banned, why would a computer change its mind? That's just
you mentioned Jack Ruby, but did you have any clips I've sent you already that you've done that you thought was new or interesting or just something that really sticks out in your mind?
the you forget things like any of the ones that mention sort of like the police officers that are riding alongside kind of thing. Um, Also, I had forgotten that Governor Connolly was in the car as well. I just people don't talk about that kind of thing, but he was there. Um, and there was the one um the one where they get see they I would love to find out who the big burly man is who was either wearing a hat or where they see he looked like a football player, a linebacker.
Oh, the 6'7" blonde haired guy.
Yeah, it'd be
Yeah, I don't
interesting.
know.
It'd be interesting to find out. Like even then, I mean, he's almost. You might want to say that he might not even be Secret Service because he's so big he'd stick out. That that's if you were targeting, say, like an important person, you just look for that guy, see where he's standing, and then look near him to see if the person that you're targeting is near him. So it's.
There's a few more weird ones. We haven't even dived into the weird stuff I gotta send you
I
still
just,
because I still have
I
to
think
hammer
it's,
those out.
I think some of that, what I find interesting about this whole thing is it's taking place in the United States, where the land of the free, where uh, there seems to be so much stuff that's being hidden all the time. Yet during that time, if you talk to any American, like during the 70s and particularly in the 70s, they were like, "Oh no, this America is the land of the free. There's freedom and stuff." But there seems to be something going on there. Like uh, I was, I'd forgotten about the Dallas cabal of
Oilman.
businessmen. Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. But I mean, didn't the guy put an ad in the paper the day before?
Yeah, it was there's a wanted poster for John F. Kennedy that said wanted for treason, and weirdly enough, I think it was General Walker that did that. A lot of people suspect him at least of doing that, but Jack Ruby had it in his car, near the floor seat of the passenger side when they arrested. So there's a lot of weird things I didn't notice this. You always hear like people always go, well, the FBI, they edited the person's statement to not say that, and you're just kind of like, can you give me like a specific example, like just so I know that it actually did happen and it's not bullshit? Well, we just did a couple clips I put up yesterday, the ones you recorded ago, but James Leon Simmons. I didn't realize if you watch his interview on YouTube, he talks about going behind, seeing a puff of smoke from he's one of the railroad workers. Um, he talked about going behind the picket fence, seeing smokes come up from between the embankment on the trees or something like that. And he talked about going back there with an officer, seeing footprints on the mud, and then also seeing them on like something that you would stand on top of to look over the fence. and but he didn't find anybody. Well, his interview where he says, "This is what I told the FBI," when he's asked that question, "Did you tell the FBI this?" "Yes, I did." "Were you ever interviewed by the Warren Commission?" "No, I was not." You're kind of like, that's weird. But then you look at his FBI report and it says like, was standing on the railroad thing, saw nothing significant, said the shots came from the Texas School Book Depository. And near the Texas School Book Depository, there was a fence where he entered. It's not near the Texas School Book Depository. It's near the grassy knoll, which is where the fence is. But the FBI edited his report to make it sound like that this guy's statement goes with all the other people that said it came from the Texas School Book Depository. And the only reason you can prove that is if you look at the Dallas Police Department's statement that he gave, then the FBI report, and then look at what he told the press. The two, the press and the police one, match up. The FBI report does not. So you're now like wondering, okay, well, how many other, and I've been using the FBI for a lot of these clips too. So I'm kind of like, there's a couple where I have to resend you because I have to end up looking up more information on them and trying to figure out if this is what it was or not. Like I still don't even have Nick McDonald down, the guy who arrested Lee Harvey Oswald in um
Oh,
the
right.
Texas Theater.
Yeah, because I'd love to find out what happened when they fell between the seats.
Apparently, I mean, and there's a photo of him. I have it for the clip, but he has a cut right here that goes, I mean, all the way from like his like mustache, all he doesn't have a mustache, but it goes like where the mustache would be. It goes all the way up the whole side of his face, up to like his ear. And he said that when he fell and Oswald had the gun down, he was holding the gun like this, trying to bring it down, and the firing or the pull of it scratched his whole face. And I was like, man, why the hell were you not interviewed by the Warren Commission? He was a local hero to Dallas police and everything. That's why they took photos of him because they thought the Warren Commission or the federal authorities would ever want him. But I don't think he was supposed to be there. Um,
It's yeah, it's all these things about how you know, it's like Oswald was expecting them to catch him there um from that thing. But one of the things I've always wondered about as I'm reading this, as the stuff and as I'm recording it, because you've done extensive research, do you think you've done more research than they did on, say, like the movie JFK?
oh, hell no.
Why do you think there was such a controversial reaction to that movie?
Well, you got to understand that movie, despite all maybe some, there's a lot more speculation and there's a lot more bias in the JFK movie. I still have not seen it. I've seen clips. But there's a lot of things that can easily be debunked now. That does come with time. The only importance to that movie significantly historically is it brought JFK back into the conversation. When I say that is that after that movie, Oliver Stone had to go testify in the Senate and he was sitting there, and that's when they established the Assassination Records Review Board. Because at the ending, he put a little message in there and said, a lot of these files are still locked and they're not releasing them. Write your congressman and have them go and get everyone to try and release these records. And when that happened, a lot of people wrote in, and that eventually established the Assassination Records Review Board. And even then, we still got to do clips on them, and half of them been on the show. So that's like, I don't even need to write a script for them. I know what they told me. You know what I mean? I have not forgotten that. But there's a lot of things that are like things I want to invite some of the guys I'd interviewed in the past. I didn't know because I'm digging through emails. I'm digging through. It's weird because when you're doing the clips, you're looking at documents, and then you go over to the more newer stuff, which was 1995 was the Assassination Records Review Board. So now you got kind of things like letters being written out, but they're typed. They're not just written and some handwriting in cursive. They're typed. So then you have like David Montague, who I've had on the show, and his, big thing for me was like he was just like, I've been to the National Archives. I've seen the rifle, I've seen the window, I've seen everything that the public hasn't seen when it comes to declass or classified material. And he goes, I left there knowing full damn well Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't the only person that shot at the president. And I go, thank you. That's all I needed. I don't need anything super conspiracy, who you think did it. Just when you look at the basic materials and you tell me, I don't think so. And he was 100% like government guy. So just no
Oh,
bull.
because when I think going back to some of the things that is interesting is when you started bringing in like the mob connections.
I like that. That stuff always trends more because people will be more likely to believe the
Now,
mob.
this is since you've been talking about this, and since have you have you found that people, I don't want to say people of your generation, but you and I are obviously from different, like I'm a Gen Xer. I
I'm
don't know if you'd be a,
62. What are you talking about?
yeah, I mean, you know,
Don't drink coffee before bed. It's got me messed up today.
that's right. I'm a robot uh, from 1962. But they,
There's a star man waiting in the
do you find that people of your age range are still interested in this? Like, do you get a lot of comments from, is it mainly older people trying to going,
It's older people.
you don't know what you're talking about, young man? Or is there anybody?
No, it's older people. I've had a few comments where someone would be like, "Were you around in '63?" Well, I was, and then they'll comment something like this, and then I'll just comment below that. Oh, what was it? I did leave a snarky comment for a guy, and I kind of felt bad about it. But I honestly, it's you gotta understand with all that viewership that's getting, there's a lot of like with everyone that's like, it's the CIA, it's the CIA. After a while, you're just kind of like, no shit. Like the clip basically is saying that like Oswald was a patsy. I'm like. I mean, the whole clip was about another guy that didn't look like Oswald with a rifle. Wait, do you need to say he was a patsy in the comment? Like, I don't know. Are you trying to feel like you got information? But there was one where someone commented something, and uh, it was I don't know. It was something stupid. Were you around in '63? Oh yeah. Where do you get off making subjective inferences? Oswald shot 3 times from the 6th floor. He ran home, grabbed pistol, and murdered J.D. Tippit. End of story. And I was like, it's not an inference if you're just putting into video what people are saying. He goes, I'm going through FBI reports, and I just explained like, I'm not trying to give you any bias, but that was on like the J.C. Price clip, and then there was another one where someone mentioned something like, oh, 63 or something like that. I wish I could find it right now, but I said something a little bit snarky. But really, I was just like, I just commented other clips of what he mentioned and full and be like, this I already did stuff on that, man.
It is one of these things where you kind of I find it like I got this. I think the only time I've sort of made a snarky comment myself was even from Mysteries of the Abandoned. I get fan mail from that's the only way I can put it is fan mail. And my fan mail is very rarely compliments about, hey, you're doing a great job. Thank you very much. It's usually going, you said that word wrong. It's said like this, where you, and there was, this one, I can't even remember what the word was, but well, I won't get it, but I said back to the guy, I go, well, this particular word you're talking about depends on where you're from.
Can I read
It's,
you one of these comments,
oh
please?
yeah, sure.
It's for
By the way,
you.
no, please do.
Okay. It says, again, in a proper American English, you would say in the Dallas area one more one more time. He goes, fuck AI and keep the British grammar system over on their filthy island. It's not us with the grammar system. It was the British, of course, proving that they are cavemen. And I comment, I go, the voice actor is not an AI. I go, his name is in the description. You probably shouldn't comment if you can't even read that. And then I just said something like that. And that's like a lot of them's like that. A lot of them are like people snapping like AI can't even say it right. And I'm like, what did he
But
say
the
wrong? I'm
well,
listening
the
to it. It
fun,
sounds fine.
well, the funny thing is, I'm repeating it exactly how it's written for the most part. There's only a couple of times where I change things, but the I've done that with there's another guy I've been working with. I do videos with him, and he's French, and so when he sends me English dialogue, occasionally it'll have French grammar, and I'll read it and I'll go, okay, that doesn't make sense at all. And it's not like he's using Google to translate it because he speaks really good English, but sometimes when he writes it down, he's done it in a French. It's how the French would say it, and so I'll just comment. I'll say to him, "Hey, listen, man, you probably need to change this word." He has a problem with tenses because well, the French don't really use tense that way, and so there's been a couple times where I've just read it because you're right. You've only got a minute to say some of the things. Um, yeah, I mean, there could be some grammar things. The problem with
You got to know how
grammar
to say
and
Parkland. You're not saying it right.
Parkland.
Yeah, he said Parkland. I was like, all right, I'll leave that one in there. That's not that bad of a mess up.
Because it's Parkland. It's sort of like an American in the American UK. I'm in Ireland and I'm out to go to Scotland and into Yorkshire and Lancashire and
They push you on carriages through the hospital, and you get to see JFK's body getting worked on.
that's what they do. And yeah, so well, it's yeah, you'd say yeah, there are depending on where you're from and what you're doing, and like Parkland and all this, and the the English language is horrible because it uses Latin for our rules, and it hasn't changed. So we use English is actually referred to by other countries and in linguistics as the exception to every rule. It's a horrible fucking language to try and teach and to learn. English is horrible because there's an exception for every flipping rule. And so when you're writing stuff down, and that's the other thing, written English is different than spoken English. We do not write the way we speak because if we wrote down the way we speak, it looks wrong. It makes no sense until you speak it out loud and you go, okay, well, that makes sense. But when it's written on a page, unless it's a novel, you can't get away with stuff like that. So some of the comments you're getting, and yeah, there's always some troll going, oh, okay, where did you go to school and where did you learn that? And why is your pronunciation this? I got a comment from a guy once. He was saying, we, we did a show on Mysteries of the Abandoned about this island in the Philippines. And we spent about 15 minutes going over the proper pronunciation of this island. We found out where it was from. We found out we got historical recordings from people who were there, kind of thing, and how they said it. And then the episode airs, and I got this scathing email from a guy going, you are belittling our country. That's not how it's pronounced. It's pronounced like this. Our armed services were there. I should know. I was in the armed services. And he talked about, and then I read in between a couple of lines. And when he was saying he was in the armed services, he was in the National Guard in the 90s. And this story we were doing takes place during World War II. And this
A little
guy,
bit of time difference.
but as far as I know, this person's never left the country.
Hmm.
So I'm getting schooled on the proper use of this this island in the Philippines. There you go. We'll say it like that. And that type of stuff fascinates me because I go, okay, man. So I'm saying it different than you. And you're probably saying it very wrong.
The only
That's okay.
time I'll ever catch you on a correction is if it's a name where I know for a fact people would just go and just start losing their minds over.
Particularly if you know how it's said. I think we've had this conversation before. We're reading a book and you've decided the characters' names are said like this. And then you're talking to someone else who's reading the book and they're going, oh, yeah, you know that guy, that character. And he says the name and you go, who's that? And you go, well, you know that character. And you go, no, it's said like this. But it's just two people arguing about how a name is pronounced. And unless you're like Tolkien, who has a flippin' dictionary in the back of his book with this is how the name is said, and it's all spelled out. Now, the problem is it's spelled out in Elven, so you got to teach yourself how to read in Elven ruins to figure out. But he has in the back of his book, this is how you say the names. So everybody's got this right. Because I think that's fascinating listening to fans of books talk about characters and they pronounce them different ways. And it's sort of like, it reminds me of there was a T-shirt that has a picture of the Enterprise on it. Uh, and the caption underneath is, "Oh yeah, I love Star Wars." So it's like if you want to if you want to piss off enough people. So basically from that is you have people who are talking about the same thing, but they're possibly talking about something different, and I I love that kind of stuff. So at least you know what? At least you're getting comments about it. And if when you're getting if they're all negative, you could go, well, why are they all negative? And you look at it and you go, but they're not all negative. Some of them are just comments about comments. Like sometimes
It's
you'll
like
post,
10 good ones and then one negative one.
well, and even then, sometimes the negative one isn't even about anything particular. It's just about being negative. And then you'll have the 10 good ones. Sometimes they're not even about the clip. It could be in 1963, this happened. And then some guy's like, yeah, I used to go to this ice cream place in 1963. It was really good. And you're like, okay.
It happened with whenever you mention it's why I stopped sending it where it says in 1963 he was standing this or he was doing this because people started commenting in 1960. I remember when this happened. I was 9 years old, sitting on my couch, and something like that. And then like eventually, everyone started. It's like a long thread of like 100 comments of people saying where they were when John F. Kennedy was assassinated. I left that up there because I did find it interesting. But then you'll see someone comment on like 50 different clips, in like a matter of like 10 minutes, and you're like, no, you get one. You get one. Pick what you want to say.
Well, even then, and if they are commenting on that many, you wonder, do you think you've ever been hit by a bot?
Maybe, I mean, there's a lot of people that have like username as their thing, and they have no profile pictures, no videos, and says channel just created. But I haven't had anything where it's like, come check out my website, watch me get dirty. I'm like,
Well, no, well, sometimes a bot, like what they'll do is it's like they've set Chat GPT to just comment on, send a negative comment about a thing, and and that you can set it to do that. I don't know why, but
I know like there's I don't know if I should say this because I do appreciate the offer. Um, when did Black Adam come out?
oh, geez. 2 years ago, maybe? Was that 2 years
No, it
ago?
had to be a year ago.
Or maybe that's when I started seeing the ads for it.
It had to be like
Um,
February or like Aprilish, maybe, when last year. I had gotten reached out to around the time Black Adam came out by a popular podcast, not podcast, but channel out there. It's named Sean Atwood. If you look him up, he had been to jail for like a big ecstasy charge and all that, but he now is like a popular author and he's a popular kind of journalist person. Well, his show is run by like five different people. And so he's got a whole team. Let's not forget it's little old
yeah,
me doing this
yeah.
sucker. And he mentioned like I've watched a lot of your clips. He's got like 200,000 followers on Twitter or something like that. And he just messaged me. And it's I have the Twitter stuff with the check mark and everything where and he just told me he's like, "Hey, I'd like to get you on my show to talk about the JFK assassination." I was like, "I'm not no, never. I just don't have the knowledge you probably need for what you want." And he mentioned, no, I want you to be a host of my show. He mentioned how he has five different hosts for his show. They do different hours and different types of conversations. He's like, I like your conversational style. I would like to have you as a host of mine. And in my head, I'm going, why would I do that when you're not paying me? I would just be promoting your free
Oh, see,
thing.
it'd be different if he was paying you.
Yeah, so it's like I don't really want to do that because it's free. And they've offered, I think, three times now. Um, and I'm just like, no, it's like there's not a point in doing that. And I just don't have the time to do it anyway. I would lose like
And yeah, because if you're focusing on your channel and so splitting your time to work on someone else's channel, then you might even lose some people because they were like, well, where's Robbie going to be? Like, which is he doing his thing or is he doing that other
plus it
thing?
works around a schedule. You would get a certain hour of the day because he's in the UK, so he's 5 hours ahead. So he wants me to do a section where it would be like 2 a.m. UK time, but for my time it would be like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. And I'm like, I don't want to just go on and pop on and do that.
Yeah, yeah. And do you want to do a show that's focusing on 2 a.m. UK time when people are coming home from the pub, and
That would be
so
my best time to be on there ranting about like JFK shit.
but it depends on because I guess podcasts aren't really like radio call-in shows, are they? You'd have chat maybe, but you wouldn't have like people calling into. And then if you had moderators and stuff, that's always the weird. I have nothing but admiration for people who can do stuff like that. I'm not really um, a podcaster guy. I don't think I can handle chat.
You could do more of like an audio drama thing that would be a lot better.
Oh, I've done a couple of those things, but but the actual what you do with like now some of the shows like this conversation that we're having doesn't really have a chat, but if you're doing like something where you were having like a Joe Rogan-y thing where you had if there was chat on the side or you have Mike Rowe or something like that.
He doesn't, well, the only ones I know that do that are like if someone's doing it like a YouTube live. Joe Rogan doesn't do that either. I mean, I think I don't would ever probably not do that, just because you make more money doing that, to be
You
honest
do
with you.
because chat can they can donate, but also that tends to be when you're going to get sponsorship when you have more people engage. Because something like this, you can't really tell how many viewers you're going to get until after it's done.
But even like with Sean Atwood, he does a live, gets 100,000 views, and it's like I remember I clicked in on one time and he had like what 40,000 people watching live, and it was just a bunch of bots in his comments. I'm like, did you pay for a bot service to keep commenting on all your things? Because there was like 80 1,000 different bots commenting the same thing, like great episode, great show. Always love being here at Sean Atwood. Here's the link. And then it's like, that's a bot. That's not a real person. They've commented the same thing every 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's and that's the thing. So even then, you kind of wonder. There's probably not 40,000 people there. There's probably 3,000 people, and then five bots that are expanding out exponentially.
Or it could be 400. I know, I didn't realize this, but a long time ago in the beginning of my show, probably episode 91 or 81-ish, Rory Mitchell, he's a very, like, I don't know how motivational guy. And he follows one of these people that go to my gym, and the guy who goes to my gym, I didn't know this, but he shows me his Instagram. It's at 2.3 million followers. He just puts up motivational shit, and then he does a podcast for 15 minutes where what was your start to success? Person explains it, and then all right, catching us next time. And I'm sitting there going, I'm posting hour to 2 hour conversations. You're fucking doing 15 minutes, and some people do too. That really gets me when I hear that. I'm like, that's a song.
It's also all what, depending on his
Sergeant
mark.
Pepper's Lonely Hearts Band is longer than 2 minutes.
Oh, I know. That's like, yeah, it's if he's doing them that, because if you're trying to keep it to what, uh Instagram reels are a minute long, right? So they're
Yeah.
so
Well, no, it's YouTube Shorts.
oh, okay, YouTube Shorts. Well, actually, I think did Instagram increase the length of the reels? I think
Yeah,
that
Instagram does 5 minutes and TikTok does 20. I'm like, Jesus Christ.
yeah, I don't know. I
I don't need
probably
the 20. Imagine saving that video onto your TikTok, your gigabytes would be gone.
that's the thing. I mean, you're like, are you kidding me? Like, like, like today, I was sending around a bunch of videos to stuff to people. It's on Monday, and for some reason, I woke up whistling. Give a little whistle from Pinocchio because it's Monday, and whenever you're having a tough day, give a little whistle. And I just kind of said to myself, I go, sometimes Mondays need a bigger feckin' whistle. And so I just posted um, I went online to put some music behind it, and I just wrote that up and I sent it out to a bunch of people, and that even that was like 5 megs or something. There's nothing to it, but when you're getting to the gigabytes, yeah, it's crazy, it's just crazy. I'll think about TikTok, but I know from a marketing standpoint it could probably be better. But I'm interested that it is interesting that a lot of people think I'm AI. That's kind of funny.
I don't know why. Maybe it's because your voice is so, I guess, different.
It's also the way that we're banging out the clips because you're putting out so many at the same time. A lot of
I
people
heard you start adding emotion to it a little bit more. You started giving some more emphasis, and like AI doesn't do emphasis.
no, and so there's that sort of so there is some changes there after you made that comment. I think I changed a couple things, but also the a lot of people think that well, a lot of people take a bit longer to record kind of thing. So I'm lucky to be in the position I'm in now where I've got over I'm flexible over the summer so I can do these, and that's really cool. But also the way that they're written and the way that you're formatting and done, it makes it easier to sort of bang them out. So if somebody sees five of these in a row, you kind of go, well, that's probably AI, like unless he's got somebody who's doing these for him, but who would do that? And you're like, but we have a partnership, so why not? This is it. This is the type of thing where you got a thing. I'm happy to do it. Um, it's we're not actually promoting. Well, you're kind of promoting your page, but um, in many ways, you're just getting information out there. You just
I'm just trying to leave something historical for the younger generations because I'm about tapped on this shit. Like I'm so burnt out from any podcast at all. I'm lucky I'm able to even stumble into this thing right now. I took 2 weeks off, man. It's like the first recording I've done in like 2 weeks.
how's the you? So it's not a new job. You just have one less job, right?
Yeah, but I wanted to take summer off to. I went from having two jobs to one job, but then I want to just have a summer. So I've been going to like concerts like every.
You want to be normal.
Oh God, I just want to live a little bit before I die.
That's
That's it.
that's actually it's when you mentioned concerts and the older people like this year I've had a chance to go to a couple concerts. I haven't been to concerts forever,
They're fun.
but one of the things I caught was the Black Sabbath ballet, which is one of the trippiest things I've ever seen, man. It was done by the Birmingham Royal Ballet Company, and they Black Sabbath being from Birmingham, and it was fantastic. You know, seeing heavy metal music, Black Sabbath, combined with ballet, but also the crowd, everyone in the crowd was like, it was a sea of white, you know, just like it was all old people. And then like the grandkids were in and they were interviewing like, you know, a 10-year-old. What do you think of Black Sabbath? Oh, I think Black Sabbath is great. Oh, yeah, great. You know, and because over here, they're not Satanists, they're not evil. They're just a bunch of guys who used to work in a factory who put together a band. In fact, they're I'm not sure if it's officially, they're unofficially credited with being the fathers of heavy metal music. They
Not
were the first
Metallica?
ones. No, these Black Sabbath predates Metallica by 10 years, maybe, kind of thing. And so when these guys first started out and their sound, just what they did, uh, it was really interesting. One of the things that you forget about, like a lot of metal bands, most of their influences were classical music. And Ozzy was just a nut. He was always just a nut kind of thing. But even you know, you had Geezer Butler, the basser, but you had the other thing was the guitarist, Richie, was missing a finger. Just as the band was about to take off, he lost a finger um in a accident in the factory, in a press accident. And so he had to devise a glove that allowed him to play. And because of that glove, that would have developed into like a Black Sabbath signature sound.
Like Jerry
Um,
Garcia.
yeah,
He was missing a finger on his hand, and then we have the great, oh, as a Def Leppard drummer that lost an arm.
he lost an arm kind of thing. So you can change the way, and because of that, they developed, I think he was one of the ones responsible for developing the double kick pedal and the pedal that plays the pedal that'll play the snare kind of thing, and how they worked that out. But through that machinations, they developed the double kick, you know, so you all of a sudden you have a lot of that happening. So that was really cool. But I caught Devo this summer, and Devo was the same thing. Devo had there was a lot of elderly folk there watching Devo kind of thing, but it was their 50th anniversary tour. And so I was like, I've been a fan of these guys for 50 years. Wow. No, I couldn't. No, because I'm just 57 and I found them, and I think it was when I was 13, maybe. I think I got my first Devo album, but I was a member of the fan club and I had one of their red hats and you know the energy domes, and I had one of their yellow suits. And oh yeah, it was but the concert was really good. These guys are all in their 70s kicking ass on stage, man. They're just, and that's when you see, you know, when you see the old rockers, and oh, particularly over here in the UK.
Mick
Uh,
Jagger.
well, just not just that, during the summer festivals, like the 80s bands come out to play, like you know, like Kim Wilde, all the, you know, the uh you got Level 42, you got all the big bands like Spandau Ballet, all these bands will come. Gary Newman, you know, all these guys who were really big in the 80s are still touring, and they tour all over the UK. Um, and you know, they're quite they're quite up there in their age grade, but they're still up there rocking away. And I think that's fantastic that they can still put on a good show.
I got to ask about Star Wars 2 Battlefront that you voiced.
Yes.
Tell me.
Uh, that was a lot of fun because the games like that are they had the actual story. There was a story with um so you have the main characters who have their, if you play like the single player campaign thing. But when you're voicing games like uh action games, like fighting games, like Star Wars, like COD, like you know, any of the games where there's particularly any game where you might be playing against bots at some point kind of thing. Um or not even that. The what I did for Star Wars Battlefront 2, which was fantastic. Uh, there was a there was a part of that game that people didn't play that much, and I wish they did because it was a bit buggy. It was the spaceships, the starships. So I was cast as a rebel pilot, and I had 244 lines that were basically all little one-liners that you kind of throw out like, I got him in my sights. You know, that's my wing, or I can't shake him. All that standard stuff. I got to do a Porkins scream when he's going to crash into the Death Star. There was lots of getting blown up and screaming like that, and it's very interesting that you would ask that because I'm known as like the long form narration guy, and so you get a chance to do some of these games where you by the end of the day they ramp it up, so at the end of the day you're screaming really really loud and you can actually hurt you. You can't hurt your voice, you not care. And the last party I was at for our studio, there's a woman who's also a very prolific voiceover artist. She's also from Vancouver, and we used to actually audition together as husband and wife all the time. And when I moved over here to the UK and I joined up with my agency now, when she joined up, it was really interesting. But she's Rogue in Cyberpunk 2077. She's the Hitman's in all the Hitman games. She's the controller. She's his controller. She just won a BAFTA for Returnal, the game Returnal. Her name's Jane Perry. And Jane and I were sitting down. She's fantastic. She's absolutely fantastic. She brings games to life so well. But she was sitting down and she goes, Casper, I would give anything to do what you're doing. Just long form narration, just talking away. And I looked at her, I went, Jane, I want to do what you're doing. I want to be in the game kind of thing. And she said, yeah, but I would kind of like to have one day where I don't come home and my voice is so sore that I can't even talk. And for me, I'll have a couple of those days that are, or if I'm talking a lot, you do that. But games are really fun. Like when I mentioned when I was in Supermassive's Devil Inside, where just a small little player, but I play a Chicago cop who gets garroted. So, so, I, so I'm sitting in the booth going, "Whoa!" How's that? Can we put a bit more breath behind it? Whoa! How's that? A bit longer and less phlegm, and and we just with stuff like that. So you forget that things like games, any game that has like a first person game, for example, Jane was talking about. She goes, you have to puff and pant and huff and all these little things that you don't realize you're doing, like as you walk up a hill, or as you say you walk up a hill and you walk around the corner and you bump into somebody, and the little sounds that you make, and they sound silly when you're recording them, but if you don't put them in, then the character doesn't work, kind of thing. Um, and the actually, it's sort of like I was it's like an anime dub in a way where there's a bunch of stuff like when they put in the anime stuff. I'm gonna not get not a lot of fans here because I'm actually not a big fan of anime dubs. I prefer the original voice. Um, I just don't think that the North American voices fit the the structure, like the way it's written and the way it's just the way it sounds. But that's just me. That's the way I've always been. There's some people who watch that and they fall in love with the character. And there's some voiceover characters who've made their entire careers out of just voicing anime dubs, and they've done really good jobs with them. I'm just not a big fan of them. Um, but I was told once by a Japanese person, they said, when he said, "Why don't you like anime, your English dubs?" And I go, "Well, they seem kind of over the top, and they tend to you'll see the same guy playing the same characters all the time and stuff." And he goes, "Well, what if I was to tell you that's exactly what happens in the Japanese side of it? There are certain characters who are cast for certain types. They don't audition. It's this type of character is coming in. That's the guy you get. This type of character is written. That's the guy you get. There's no choice. Like you don't. So as an actor, you kind of want to go, well, can I maybe try for the bad guy, maybe, or can I? What if I want to play the old the wizard master? Wouldn't that be a lot of fun? And they're like, nope, you're this. You're the love interest. You got the voice for it. That's the way it's going to be. And you're like, okay. And that's when he said that, and he goes, and some of the voice acting is way over the top and it's ridiculous. Japanese people listen to it, go, oh God, there he goes again. But we don't catch that with the language. Whereas over here, when you hear it, some of the way that they'll deliver the dialogue, that's the other thing because you're also you're matching lips and all this stuff, so it's a bit faux. But I like doing. Uh, I've done a couple animation projects, but they were actually written for the English voice kind of thing. So there was no animating to anything. So those are all right. I mean, I did I did a thing called Ploy, which is about a bird that can't fly.
Yeah.
A plover, I think they're called. They're Scandinavian, like
This
Icelandic
was in
bird.
2007, wasn't it?
Yeah. No, it would have been in, geez, it would have been in maybe 2015, that one. Because,
Oh, wait, hold on. Chloe, 2018.
yeah. And in that one, I play a seagull who, the breakdown of the character was he is a mad scientist, extremely intelligent, but he smoked too many drugs. That was my character breakdown.
How do you
Uh,
try and act like you smoke too many drugs?
I did my best Spicoli from Fast Times at Ridgemont High. And that's how, so the seagull was like, um, my character was like, little dude, hey, how are the wings today, man? Awesome. Good to know. Smoke? Okay, you're too young. That's all right. And so just stuff like that. And the producers liked it. They seemed to like it. But when you get a breakdown like that, extremely smart seagull, but smoked too many drugs. So what would happen is I would come up with all these ideas, but they were really crazy stuff. And that was a lot of fun, the stuff like that. But that's the nature of the business. So yes, so I'm actually kind of happy that you've been sending me these things because um, they're outside of my wheelhouse, to be honest. I don't normally get stuff like that in a way, so it keeps you sharp. So, but as well, I'm learning stuff as I go. And some of the things you're learning is like, oh, I'll record something and I go, oh, I didn't know that. And it's there's one of those moments where you just go, oh, I didn't know that.
M-
And I actually kind of think that's kind of cool with like say a YouTube short goes by and you go, oh, I didn't know that. To me, they've done their job. You know, if I've learned something.
Do you remember when I asked you a while back when I was making my film if you would want your name attached to it because of the conspiracy stuff to it? Do you feel more comfortable with it now because I've sent you so many clips that have given you
Well,
a
now see
stance?
now it's well now since everyone thinks I'm an AI anyway, so it's
Oh,
and which is but even then, I mean, see going back to like what Morgan Freeman was saying, you know, the only I think one of the only issues we're really having with AI and stuff like that right now is there isn't enough legislation about it. So we're rife for exploitation. You can kind of do some stuff. In fact, I was watching a LinkedIn clip the other day with a guy follow. He's a pretty big voiceover guy, and he basically started his clip by saying, "I wish I wouldn't have to be doing this thing, but there's a client I've been using for a long, 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 long time. I've done lots of stuff for them. And the other day I was doing some stuff in the office, and I had YouTube was playing in the background, and this one of our ads came on, and I listened to it, and there was a part of it that was incorrect. He was like, he goes, I never would have said that. That's not me. Did I send them that? That's so he called the client and he said, hey, just checking. Because this is something that I never would have sent you, but there seems to be, you know, on this, was there a glitch in the recording or something like that? Uh, because then he said, and, you know, heaven forbid it's AI because I didn't give permission to, to use my voice for AI. And the client got back to him right away and said, yeah, we've actually been doing that for a while now. We don't want to bug you with every little thing, you know. So if there's a change in the script or something, we're just putting in the AI." And this person, he basically hung up the phone and went, "Fuck, fuck," because he's like, that is so wrong. That is so wrong on so many levels. Because every time there's a pickup, you get paid for that. So all of a sudden, they've cut him out of a crap ton of money, you know, kind of thing. Probably $5,000 to $10,000 a year, and that's a lot, you know. That's
yeah.
for if it's a recurring client. And the fact that they were like, yeah, we've actually been done, and you're like, well, no, you can't. do that unless I give you my permission. Is basically you're stealing is
Yeah.
what you're doing. But some of the big clients, they don't. In fact, they were just like, oh, well, we don't really see. We're just like, we didn't want to bug you for the little stuff. What's the big deal? What's the big deal? That's sort of the slippery slope where you're like, well, here's the big deal. Then the other thing was somebody had said I was offered a company approached me and said, can I sell them my voice for um, uh, AI training? Well, how much are you going to give me? He said, well, we'll pay you $80,000. And you think, $80,000? That's a lot of money. And then somebody says, and then you can never work again because they have your voice. So how long do you think you can make $80,000 last? How long are you planning to live? Because you can't be a voiceover artist anymore, at least right now, the way things are, because if they have your voice and they just start selling it around and give it to people, you don't get paid for that anymore. It's not you. So a lot of people will go, well, $80,000, that's a lot of money. But then it's like, yeah, but it's not enough money to live for the next 20 years. So you're going to have to get another job. And you're like, oh yeah, I suppose. So that's the trap that people fall into. I will not be trapped such because I'm having too much fun.
No, you're doing a great job. I think you do excellent work.
Thank you very much.
I
I
was
mean,
surprised to see your IMDb and notice all the credits you got. I was like, damn, he's in that too. We've never talked about it. Shit.
some of those were yeah, because they were like the X-Files was so funny. The Again, the X-Files one was it was a directed by Kim Manners, may he rest in peace. He was a director for the X-Files. And the very first time I met him, I had been up drinking the night before. I was I was still drunk, pretty much, kind of thing. Had no sleep, nothing. And I'm about to go to this audition, one of my first auditions for the X-Files, and the casting director doesn't like me for the X-Files because every time that I've gone into a room, the the director has pretty much given me a part. I've done the thing. They're like, yeah, you're perfect. We'll take this. And she never liked that because for her, it was like she needs to recommend somebody to the director. And so she's never liked that every time I went in the room, I got booked. And so they brought me in for the X-Files. And I had one word. It was what? And it's one of those absolutely horrible words that all I had to do was go in and go, what? I had that one word. So they bring me in. Basically, it was the episode that had the elephants or the animals that were dream elephants or something, or dream animals or something like that, where uh, you had ghost lions and ghost elephants. I don't know. It was a really weird episode. Uh, and I was a zookeeper, and somebody's asking me about these elephants, and I was stoned or something. And so I'm standing up in the front of the room, and the director goes, action. And basically, I mean, Chris Carter's there. All the entire X Files team is in the room. There's like 8 people in the room for my one word audition. And I'm like, are you kidding? So like, I go up to the front of the room and I stand there. And then I waited a little bit and then I went, what? I just said it. And the entire room pissed themselves laughing. They started laughing so hard. And I'm standing there going, I'm looking behind me going like, is my fly is open? What's going on? And um, Chris Carter comes up to me and he goes, young man, he said, we have never seen anybody drier than David. That was perfect. Thank you very much. You got the part. And I could just see the casting director on the corner going, because she had all these people out there still to see for this role. She's not going to get any say in this. And so she's escorting me out. She puts her arm around my shoulder and she goes, I think they made the wrong choice. That's all she said to me, kind of thing. And
Damn.
so, yeah, she used to do that to me all the time. And then my part ended up getting written out of the script. So it was okay. So Kim Manners felt really bad about this, who was the director. So he tried 3 times to get me on the X Files, and he kept calling. And every time he would phone up my agent and say, "Hey, we got this part, bring him in," and then my part would get written out, and so I wouldn't get in. So finally, Kim calls up and says, "Hey, there's a thing happening. It's a small part. do you think Casper would like to do it? And my agent was like, yeah, I'm sure he would like to do it. So again, it's for the X-Files. You know, why would you turn it down? And so I was the FBI agent in charge of the evidence warehouse. And actually, the part, if the show stayed in Vancouver, could have been a recurring role because every time they came in the evidence warehouse, I'd be the guy. So I show up on set, and Kim comes and goes, "Hey, Casper, I'm really glad I got you on the show. I'd like you to introduce you to Jillian." And I look over at Jillian, and her and David are having an argument. Uh, that you can see them going at it. And this is right when they found out that they weren't being paid the same amount of money. So they weren't getting along at all. And so so he goes to bring her. David stores away. He goes in his trailer. She turns around and she takes a step and she kind of trips on this cable and she kind of does this little stumble and she goes, fuck, fuck. And Kim brings me over and goes, Jillian, this is Casper. He's going to be working with you in this next scene. And she's looked right at me and went, can we just get this done? And I went, hey, sure, no problem. And Kim went, yep, not a problem at all. And she walked away and he went, yeah, it's okay. Things are a little tense, but we'll work it out. We'll do you. And so we had our little short little scene. Then, man, that was. I think I've got a story like that for almost all the little things that I was on, where there's like this little thing happened where you're like, okay, that's it. The thing. Like when I was in the movie with Jamie Summers, the Bionic lady or the Bionic woman, pardon me. No, that was her name. I can't remember her real name. Her character's name was Jamie Summers. Anyway, uh, I was playing a park ranger, and we had this scene where they were going to fly in this helicopter and land it. And the AD said, "Okay, for this shot, you're going to be standing by this vehicle here. This your truck, and don't worry, you won't be in the shot. There won't be anything. I know you got no lines. Just you two just talk together, and point to the helicopter and stuff." And we went, okay. And then 2 weeks later, they brought me in for what they call ADR, which is the the sound was too loud, and so you now have to dub over top of what you were doing. And sure enough, it's a zoomed in scene on of us standing at the truck talking. And this is the unscripted part. So now I could have to remember what I was saying to this guy. And the problem is I was telling a joke. And the amount of times uh I didn't say truck, but I said something else that sounds like truck. And I had to work into how, because you can't just go fuckity fuck fuck fuck. And that was one of those moments where I went, yeah, you can never listen, because they were like, oh, don't worry, you won't be in the shot. Let's fucking zoom in close up with the two of us standing there, but the camera is way up on top of a hill, so we didn't. That was so frustrating. Lindsay Wagner, that's her name. Yeah. So, but yeah, the lots of little things like that. I mean, when we did Strange Luck, which was the very first TV show I did, DB Sweeney was the lead guy, and there was a lot of really weird stuff going on that set. Like when he found out that had been drafted to the NHL, um, I didn't know that that's what he'd wanted to do, and he ended up being an actor because he didn't make it. And I also was on his shit list because when somebody had mentioned it that I was there when I was introduced, and then while we're filming, the Bulls were coming into town. Michael Jordan and the Bulls had this sort of a new thing, so they're coming in to play the Raptors in Vancouver. And I think it was the Raptors in Vancouver. No, the Vancouver. I can't remember for basketball. And he wanted to go to the basketball game, and they're like, "Well, DB, you can't. We're filming. We got a show to do." And he's like, "So you're saying I can't go to the basketball game?" And they're like, "No, you can't go to the basketball game." So he had a temper tantrum, and what he would do was they would come up and go. The director would go, "And action," and he would stand there with his arms crossed and wait. And then the little script girl would run up and go, "Your line is," and he goes, "I know what my fucking line is. I'm just getting in the moment." And because his whole thing was, if I can't go to the basketball game, we're going to have a very long night. That was his thing. And it was the weirdest thing, man. I've never, I go, you're a professional. And he was actually one of the producers on the show. So you kind of go, you're costing yourself a crap ton of money by acting like a kid. Like, why would you do that? And then, I'm working with Jim Cromwell, who I actually had no lines, but I was in every scene because I was his aide. I pushed his wheelchair. I did this stuff and did this stuff. And we would have these little conversations. I remember asking him, I go, why are you doing this show, man? Why? And he went, I'm doing it as a favor for the director. Uh, and I went, which also happened. And then he was about to leave that show to go do Eraser, uh, Arnie's movie. And I was in this scene. He's working with this young upcoming actress who basically had another meltdown. And she was like, she goes, she goes, cut. She calls cut. And she goes, I cannot work with this man. He's not giving me anything. How can I act? He's not giving me. She's talking to James Cromwell, who's a seasoned veteran actor. She's absolutely horrible. She's bad. And she's blaming him because she's sucking. and, and the director's just like, okay, here we go. And then it was discovered on the show. Um, I guess I kind of snuck in on the show. DB Sweeney, what he would do was he would make sure that no one of any particular talent or skill got on the show because he didn't want anyone to show him up. He didn't want anyone on the show to be a better actor than he was. So if someone came on the show, like James Cromwell, he's there as a favor for the director. He's there it was the first time the show was ever being done as well. So it's basically the pilot of the show. And what I found out later was other actors were finding it really difficult just to get on the show because he would purposely hire people who weren't that talented so that he looked better. But as a result, the show was absolutely brutal. It was just horrible. And and then you had a show like John Doe, or the one where I played the serial killer. Uh, the guy who was in that, he played the brother in Prison Break. Uh, he's from New Zealand or something. His big claim to fame was he'd done some Xena Warrior Princess episodes, and he felt that TV was too small for him. He should have feature film or something. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Um, we're trying to wrap. We're in this farm where I kidnap all the girls and I bring them or whatever, and he's caught me and basically what he's supposed to just do is I'm supposed to sneak up behind him and kind of knock him out, or get him in this sort of fight hold, and then he's saved by this girl who breaks out of her cage, uh, to rescue him. And at the last minute, he goes, "No, no, my character would have a fight. There should be a fight
Oh,
scene."
you told me this.
Yeah, that one. And that's where the stunt guy was just like, he goes, "You can't." So we quickly choreographed this little stupid, absolutely stupid fight scene, because he was like, okay, Casper's going to run at me and I'm going to fall on my back. And then I'm going to get my feet underneath him and I'm going to kick him in the chest and I'm going to fly him across the room. And I'm going, I go, are you? And so we worked out some stuff. It was kind of, it was that type of thing, but that type of thing happened on the shows all the time. And I'm sure I told you about the Game of Thrones thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the type of thing where I didn't feel, uh, that wasn't necessary kind of thing. I thought I just don't need to be on the show that bad kind of
Yeah.
thing to do something like that. There's not a lot of there's- like there's
Well, at least with my work, you don't get injured.
no, that's the thing, yeah, I got injured. I got injured on a
I do got to wrap it here in a second here,
yeah.
Casper.
No, I think I got injured on the one where the roller coaster one. Uh did I show the pic? 27 times in a row on a
Yeah.
roller coaster. And I sprained my neck kind of thing on that one kind of thing.
Hmm.
But it was that's the fun
Like
part about
sleeping on a couch for too long.
That's right. After watching the Beatles or Beatles and getting all
I woke up fucking broken, man. I'm telling you, it was
I
rough.
you wake you must oh you were on the porch because I can imagine you were
I
like
was on a porch furniture. That's the bad part.
exactly so you're probably like oh my
My
god.
neck was hanging off the couch. So I woke up and I had a stick neck for hours. Took a Viagra, still got a stiff neck for hours. I like it.
Especially if it was like wicker furniture and you've got like little rings and circles all over, and you're like, what
They
the?
had a couple cushions down on top of that, but it was overall like wicker furniture lying on a back porch that just is like damp because it was raining outside. So I woke up and I was a little bit moist. I was like, oh, great.
Yeah, or it's like falling asleep on a plastic couch or a plastic thing they've got there, and you realize you're stuck to it, and you're like,
Great. Yeah, you get comes up with you. Casper, I do have to wrap here, man, but where's a place people can find your links and any other things you like to promote?
I am the only Casper Michaels on social media that you will find. I would like to promote season 10 of Mysteries of the Abandoned. Has just started recording, and you'll be able to air it sometime in September.
Ooh, season 10, going strong.
Season 10.
I'll make sure I link all those links in the description. It's been a pleasure chatting. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. Out of Blank Podcast. Stay tuned for next episode.